Our top focus story on the broadcast is from neighboring Pakistan, where between 5 and 6 Chinese nationals and their Pakistani driver were killed on Tuesday in an attack on their convoy in Pakistan's restive Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. This after a suicide bomber rammed an explosive-laden improvised explosive device, or a VBIED, into the convoy that was carrying the Chinese engineers and workers on their way from Islamabad to their camp in Dasu. Pakistan's second largest naval air base, PNS Siddique, in Balochistan province's Turbat city, was attacked by Baloch freedom fighters. The banned Baloch Liberation Army's Majid Brigade has claimed responsibility for the attack on the base, where Pakistani Navy helicopters and Chinese drones are stationed. We get you more on this big twin terror strike in Pakistan.
गाड़ी के मंजर दिखाई दे रहा है जहां गाड़ी तबाह हुई है और इस गाड़ी में मौजूद अफराद जो हैं वो जाँ बहक हो गए हैं। तो ये जाए वक़ुआ के मनाजिर हैं, एक्सक्लूसिव मनाजिर हैं।
The remains of the convoy carrying Chinese engineers and workers to the critical Dasu hydroelectric dam in Pakistan. 5 Chinese nationals and their Pakistani driver were killed when a suspected suicide attacker rammed his explosive-laden vehicle into their convoy near Besham city in Pakistan's northwest Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province.
जब हम वहाँ पे पहुँचे तो वहाँ पे हालात बड़े खराब थी और बाद में जो है लोकल हल्का लोग पहुँचे ताउन के लिए, फिर उसके बाद रेस्क्यू टीम भी आई है।
Neither Islamabad nor Beijing have reacted to the latest attack on the Dasu Dam construction workers. This is also the second of 2 major attacks in Pakistan in the past 24 hours. In the Balochistan province, separatist fighters attacked the second largest Pakistan Naval Air base in Turbat. The Baloch Liberation Army claimed responsibility for the attack, insisting a number of Pakistan Navy helicopters and Chinese drones had been destroyed in the strike along with Pakistan Navy personnel. Just last week, the Majid Brigade of the BLA attacked the ISI and Pakistan military intelligence headquarters in Gwadar, the port city of Balochistan. 2 soldiers and 8 fighters were killed in action. Gwadar is a crucial port city central to China's Belt and Road Initiative. Beijing has sunk close to $60 billion in the Pakistani leg of its Belt and Road Initiative. The multiple attacks on Chinese interests in Pakistan have both Islamabad and Beijing very worried. Bureau Report, India Today. Pakistan appears to be in tailspin. Not just their economy, but even their security is in tatters. But are Chinese interests specifically in the line of fire in repeated attacks, not just on Chinese nationals, but also Chinese interests in Balochistan? Is the China-Pakistan economic corridor now not just Pakistan, but also China's Achilles heel? Joining me on this special broadcast is Mona Alam, a journalist from Pakistan, covering these incidents very closely. Also with me is Sushant Sareen, Senior Fellow at the Observer Research Foundation. Mona, I want to begin by asking you, what's the latest information on the attack on the Chinese in KPK en route the Dasu Dam? Who are these Chinese nationals? How could the terror strike take place despite heavy security? And I believe they were moving in a convoy.
Yes, Gaurav, that's correct. And definitely this seems like multi-pronged attacks that Pakistan has been facing since past many days, as you rightly mentioned in your preamble. And this seems like a consecutive spree which we're in. And so far that we know, so as far as we know by now, the Prime Minister, I think, has obviously tweeted on this matter. He has reckoned the fact that Chinese officials have been martyred and they've lost lives along with their Pakistani driver. This doesn't seem to be one of its kind. It seems to be a spree of attacks. And despite the differences in ideologies of the BLA and the TTP, because, you know, BLA is a liberal movement and TTP happens to be a radical Islamist group. But despite that fact, I think the linkages between the two of them and particularly when it comes to attacking Chinese officials and CPEC projects, these commonalities, I think, cannot be ruled out anymore. And obviously there has to be a link between the two. And Pakistani officials in specific, to whosoever we've spoken to, they seem quite disgruntled about the fact that Iran and Afghanistan, the inaction from the neighboring countries, is something which doesn't seem to fathom well with Pakistani officials and Pakistani government. This is something which has been constantly been taken up by with both the neighbors, but something is beyond my comprehension here, because there seems to be a visible inaction despite continuous reminders, and it has also ended up in certain kind of escalation from both the ends, whereby Pakistan has also done a counter attacks in both the cases. But this, I think, was an extreme measure, and this extreme measure had to be pulled out given the extreme circumstances that Pakistan was facing.
Stay with me for a moment, Sushant Sareen. As Mona rightly pointed out, this isn't the first time that Dasu Dam workers have been targeted. They've been killed earlier. They've been killed today. Pakistan raised, if I remember correctly, almost 2 division-size forces to protect the Chinese and Chinese interests. But what seems to be going wrong in Pakistan? We'll talk about CPEC in general a little later, but I want to specifically talk about Chinese nationals being repeatedly targeted and Dasu Dam project being repeatedly targeted, Sushant Sareen.
Yeah, so Gaurav, just allow me half a minute to take some vicarious pleasure of what Mona has said. This business of inaction on the part of Iran and Afghanistan, despite repeated entreaties by Pakistan that they should take action. Doesn't it sound so familiar to us in India that we used to keep telling the Pakistanis to take action against terrorist groups based inside Pakistan, most of which operated with the support and sanction of the Pakistani authorities, and they never took any action. So I guess the shoe is on the other foot now. But having said that, on your own question, I think it's very clear that the Chinese are very clearly in the crosshairs of various terror groups. Apparently, this one has not been claimed by TTP. The TTP has denied any involvement in this latest attack on the Chinese workers or engineers, whatever they were. It's not very clear. But the Chinese are clearly in the crosshairs, partly because nothing hurts the Pakistanis more than when the Chinese are being targeted, and for multiple reasons. One, the CPEC projects are not going anywhere anyways. The money is not flowing in anymore. But whatever projects are there, I think the Chinese are being targeted partly because they want to scare the Chinese away. And it hurts Pakistan because then Pakistan is shown up to be completely incompetent. Like you rightly said, they raised 2 divisions strength of troops to protect these guys and have still been failing to protect these people. And there has been a spate of attacks against Chinese targets. So, for example, even the naval base, which was attacked, I think yesterday or day before, even that had a lot of Chinese assets out there, number one. Number two, the Gwadar port attack is again aimed at the Chinese in one way or another. And you have to look at the kind of reach of these terrorists that 2 days back they were attacking down south in Balochistan. Today there's another attack which is taking place in the far north, upcountry. And in between there have been attacks along the entire route. So clearly the west of Indus River is an area which is now being torn apart by the terrorist strikes.
Oh, absolutely.
And there is very little the Pakistanis are able to do about it. Now what will happen, Gaurav, is that there will be a lot of Chinese pressure on the Pakistanis that the Chinese be allowed to bring their own security. They had been putting this pressure earlier. I think they're going to double down on that pressure, that the Pakistanis are incapable and incompetent of providing the Chinese security. If they want these projects to go ahead, the Chinese security personnel should be brought in, which means Chinese boots on the ground, which is going to be extremely problematic for the Pakistanis to accept. So we don't know how this is going to play out.
Is that what will happen, Mona? Will Chinese have to put their boots on ground? There are some reports that there are Chinese military forces or elements of Chinese forces in Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir in Gilgit and Baltistan to protect Chinese interests. There are Chinese forces, at least some elements in Gwadar, but 2 strikes in 24 to 48 hours, Dasudam and Turbat. 1, is that a coincidence? 2, are Pakistanis unable, unwilling or incompetent to protect China and Chinese interests here in Pakistan?
Of course, see, these allegations of incompetence being leveled at Pakistan, I'd like to specifically mention that yes, these attacks, 2 consecutive attacks have happened within 24 hours, and this is a grave concern for all of us. But having said that, the Turbat attack and the attackers, almost all of them, as far as I know and as far as I've collected, were neutralized there on the spot right away. And no losses of lives were incurred, at least in the Turbat incident, thankfully. But yes, Chinese officials and Chinese nationals being killed like this, them losing lives, and of course a Pakistani national as well. Having said that, I don't think Pakistan is very problematic with Chinese footprint on ground. I mean, they're very, very well entrenched within the Pakistani society, within the Pakistani cities, and especially Balochistan, KP, and you've rightly mentioned Gilgit-Baltistan as well. I also endorse this. I mean, I second you there. They're very much there, and they're very well, I think, connected. They're very well entrenched. I'd say deeply entrenched within the Pakistani system, societies. They're working in cordiality with Pakistani citizens and nationals. So if that is an extreme step that China thinks it must take, of course, if I step in China's shoes, I wouldn't think otherwise as well. So, you know, I don't think Pakistan is problematic with any such thing.
Okay.
There is the SSD which was raised for this particular purpose.
Yes.
The special service division to protect the Chinese nationals and, you know, the entire projects as a whole.
But Sushant Sareen, is the understanding that you will have Chinese divisions inside Pakistan all along CPEC, and would that also not mean that the Chinese divisions would then directly be in conflict either with the Baloch Liberation Army or with Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, and in times ahead, because when the Chinese come, they would also be eating pork, they would also be living their lifestyle, and that lifestyle would directly be in conflict with Pakistan's fundamentalist lifestyle. Would this not lead to more conflict in Pakistani society?
You're quite right, Gaurav. And I think what Mona gets wrong is the fact that she's comparing expats who are working in Pakistan on various projects with Chinese security personnel coming, putting boots on the ground, and actually carrying out all the stuff which is necessary to start protecting either engineers or convoys or projects, which means that they will come in and create separate enclaves for themselves and their people. They will demand special security privileges, which the Pakistanis will find difficult to give, because effectively it means ceding control to the Chinese, and it doesn't really look good. Maybe it's okay for Mona to sit out here and very glibly say that, yeah, we don't have a problem. But when it actually starts playing out on the ground, then people will definitely have a problem. The second part of it is that, for example, last time when the Dasu Dam project was attacked and about 9 Chinese engineers were killed, the Pakistanis, I believe, had to pay maybe 20 or what was it, $30 million as compensation to the Chinese. Probably some similar amount will be demanded this time as well. And the Chinese were livid with the Pakistanis for failure to protect. Now, so when the Chinese are going to come in, apart from all the social tensions that will be unleashed, they will demand, certain rights, which I don't see how any self-respecting country can concede to the Chinese, which is why on the issue of security personnel, the Pakistanis have been resisting. But now the choice before them is that either if they want the Chinese to come in, bring the Chinese money in, bring Chinese expertise in, they will have to concede at least some ground on a Chinese security personnel. And if they don't do it, then this gravy train also stops.
Perhaps a longer discussion in the days ahead. Mona Alam and Sushant Sareen for joining me here on this part of India First. Many thanks.